We are just honored to have this excellent group of panelists up here. We got Carl, we got Brandon, we got somebody named Solomon, I don't know who he is. Alec, Darren, and Marcus. They're not only excellent athletes, they are superior humans working within their community, whether it's mental health, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's leadership, making a difference as citizens, and as just human beings and making a difference with youth and the community. So we appreciate the work they're doing outside of playing football because that makes a bigger difference, we think, in the end, because you're helping save lives. So thank you for being here, all of you today. So, as I mentioned, we've got some excellent people here, and I'm gonna go ahead and try to get this panel started because I want to get as many questions in as possible, then hopefully also at the end open it up to people who may have some questions in the audience. So I'm gonna start with Carl. Carl, we know that support, mentorship is a huge need for youth. Can you explain, in your opinion, how, as an individual, we can help support young adults in their journey for whole health?
Yeah, first off, glad to be here. This, conversation is more important than ever. I do a lot of work in volunteering, and a recent study came out just a couple weeks ago in the New York Times of all the modalities, of all the apps, of all the trainings that employers do in corporate America to improve the mental health of their employees, reduce their anxiety, reduce their stress. The only thing that showed a consistent improvement was volunteering. And so less and less people volunteer post-pandemic. I do not think that is unrelated to the increase in the mental health epidemic. Being of service to other people is something that is so underrated, and providing access for young people to do that. Less and less people go to church, less and less people are getting involved, and these kids are used to just the most immediate gratification. And so building ways to get them involved, put them in positions of leadership, they can develop skills, they can feel a sense of self-worth. I don't know if anybody's seen the show Black Mirror, but it's called Black Mirror because you're looking at your phone. And all these kids are looking at their phones and they're only seeing the worst parts of themselves. They're seeing all the things that they would change, right? But when you get out, you meet people in person. Nobody meets people in person anymore. So, getting people excited about being of service to other people is what I have found to be one of the most impactful for my mental health, for anybody else's. And you also can't wait to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, you're doing something, oh yeah, I'm doing this. Like, it's a fun thing to talk about. Doing good for other people. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is like inspire people to get out, get involved, and like it's almost selfish because you feel so good. Like, I feel great being up here. Like, this is great. Been looking forward to it, right? So that's something that I don't think is talked about enough, and that is something that, like, moving forward, I think can be, a huge talking point.
Thank you very much. And also, when people see you volunteer, it says if he can do it, I can do it as well, and I can make a difference. So that's great. Thank you so much. Brandon, we're going to switch to you a little bit and talk about grief. And it manifests itself differently in everybody. But could you describe some of the emotional and psychological challenges you've encountered when you've had to deal with grief along your journey as being a superior athlete?
I can proudly say that I'm blessed for the family and teammates that I came into the league with. My grandfather is a former NFL player, played way back in Super Bowl I and Super Bowl IV, and I still have him, so I have him to lean on to kind of navigate me through this life. And then outside of him, I have my wife, my kids. I still have one of my grandmothers. I had both of them. She recently just passed. And it's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel things. And I know a lot, as people see us on TV, you just see our helmet, so you can't really see emotions. So from person outside looking in, that person doesn't feel pain, that person doesn't feel joy unless it's after a win. But at the same time, we're people, and we need to talk to people. and we need people to lean on. And, you know, I try to be that backbone for my family, like, all the time, especially since I got into the league. But the biggest part for me in my journey was when I needed a break, my family was right there to catch me. And that helps a lot. And then having 4 kids, it's kind of like, I have my son, he's my oldest, and I have 3 girls behind him. So I'm dragging him along, snatching him off the game. Like, last night, me and him took the trash out together, and he just couldn't figure out why. And then this morning on the way to school, he really said, he's like, I like the small moments we spend together. And that meant the most to me because, yeah, that's what I was trying to do, and I didn't want you to know that's what I was trying to do, so I'm going to just, you know, I'm going to tuck these tears back in, but, you know, I'm proud of you, man. But my family and, like, the NFL, to be honest, yes, we sometimes hate each other during games, but these are all my brothers here. We all sweat the same way, bleed the same way, put our pants on the same way. And so if, like, I've never met Alec, never in my life. But because I've seen the work he's done and I've heard the stories, you know, being with some of your former teammates, I feel like I've known him my entire life and I can come talk to him about anything. Darren is the same thing with you. Mark is the same thing with you. I just met Carl the same way. We was just sitting up here talking before this started. So, you know, it's a family thing, and that's kind of what we all got to get back to. And we can't be afraid to go outside. We can't be afraid to be with our family, be with our friends. Can't be ashamed of what we're going through, because I tell my wife this all the time. It's like, you think you're having a bad day, Google worst day of your life and read some of those stories. And I guarantee you will feel so much better, because it can be that much worse. It gets worse, you know? And that's kind of just got to get back to everybody being personable and just having that support system of family and friends.
Connections, and you mentioned family, not only your personal family, but your professional family, how that can make a difference in, you know, being strong and helping each other through tough times and adversity. Thank you very much. So Solomon, one of the things that I want to talk to you about is masculinity and vulnerability, and that there are different expectations for men and women, but how do you navigate your, you know, feelings and you're managing your mental health through trying to manage through those different role expectations?
Definitely, I feel like all these men up here were kind of placed in an unfair environment, growing up and being in the locker room and going through this old archaic way of being a man, you know, where we're taught to be tough, you know, rub dirt on it, you know, men don't cry, you know, men can push through anything, you know, you got a problem, just work through it. And, you know, it's tough being in that environment because, you know, it becomes a way of life. And, you know, we get these feelings that come up and we just push them down and we suppress them, or, you know, we feel a certain way and we just ignore it, you know, and it's really hard and it adds up. And so the first thing is to understand the environment that we've been placed in, that we've been living in for a long time. And then from there, like, you have to understand that we have defined as men, we've defined as tough, we've defined strength in the entirely wrong way. Like, growing up, I thought that, hey, you know, being tough would be me, you know, just pushing through something, putting a frown on and looking like a tough guy. You know, that's what worked, and that's what we were kind of taught by, like, the locker room, by the environment that we're placed in. But really, through my journey of grief, through my journey of, you know, my own mental health journey and everything I've been in, I've learned that is not strength. You know, strength is being vulnerable, being able to be real, authentic, and genuine with your emotions, you know, even when you don't want to be. Because in reality, like, a lot of us are going through the same thing, having a lot of the same emotions, having a lot of the same stresses, anxieties, a lot of the same sadnesses and angers and awkward feelings. And if we don't speak about these things, like, we all feel alone, and we all feel like we're going through it, you know, in an alone rate, and just feel, sometimes it makes you feel crazy, sometimes it makes you feel like something's wrong with you. But when we talk about these things, we have a deeper connection in these vulnerable moments, in these moments of real strength, in these moments of real toughness. You know, after my sister died by suicide, I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't get help. I didn't go to therapy. You know, my mom was begging me, but I thought I had to be tough. You know, I thought I had to put on this persona that, you know, I was a third pick in the draft, and I had to make sure, like, everything looked good and everything was going well. You know, I couldn't make an excuse that I was depressed. I couldn't make an excuse that I was going through this volatile journey of grief. You know, I really felt like I couldn't talk about these things, and I thought that was strength. But when I had to have that moment of telling someone how I really felt, telling someone that I was depressed, that I needed help, that my back was against the wall and I didn't feel like there was any light in the room that I was in, that was real strength. And that took everything in my power, everything inside of me to be able to say that, and everything inside of me to be able to be like, hey, I need help right now. So when we understand those things, we understand that, hey, as men, and what these men are doing up here is why I'm so thankful for them, and everything they stand for, is that we're up here redefining what it means to be a man. And I was lucky. I heard Obama speak about 5-6 years ago, and he started off this talk, and he said, "To be a man means to be a good human being," and that's all it should be. It shouldn't be to have a certain persona, to look a certain way, to talk a certain way, to walk a certain way. It should be to be the best human being we can, and to volunteer, and to motivate others, and to encourage others to be just good human beings. And that's what we need on this earth, and that's what these men up here on this stage are. And I'm thankful for them and thankful for this time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just being a good human being, irregardless of gender, absolutely, yeah. So I mentioned that these people aren't only rock stars on the field, but also within the community. We also have an author here as well with Alec, and he wrote a book, 7 Crucibles, and you talk about adversity. And it was really ironic when you mentioned on page 6 of your book that when you got hurt in 2021, I didn't realize that was the same year Solly was playing with the Raiders. But you talk about adversity. Tell us a little bit more about how you got through it, and what advice would you give others as they're going through adverse situations in their life?
Yeah, I think the best way to answer that question is to just kind of tell the story of that ACL situation. You spend 3 years with a chip on your shoulder, being undrafted, feeling like you're overlooked, feeling like you have to prove yourself to every single person, every single day you walk in the building. And all of a sudden you get to this place where you're chasing this external validation of getting that C on your chest or getting a Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. And it's like the awards and the recognition make it seem like you might be on the mountain peak, might seem like you're at the top of this journey, but it's really the internal standard and purpose that you walk every single day with. And I think that allows you to view adversity as an opportunity. So when you do tear an ACL and you do have these vulnerable relationships with human beings that you go to work with, that you live with, that you work with on a daily basis, it allows you to reintroduce yourself to your purpose, your passion, your intentions. And at that moment, I had a number of teammates. I'm sitting there. I thought I was on the mountain peak, team captain, ready to change the world, man. And in a snap of the fingers, it all got taken from me. All of a sudden, you're in a contract year. All of a sudden, head coach is gone. All of a sudden, your guys are gone. And all of a sudden, you're getting a handshake and thank you for your service. We'll see you later. And that uncertainty, that adversity, to embrace it, to make a decision on how you can respond to that situation. Not what happens to you in life, but how you can respond to that circumstance. That's what I could control. And to have teammates allow you to share stories and journal in healthy ways to deal with that, that's what ended up turning into a book. That's where I start reading the self-help books and the stoicism, and I'm really diving into it. I'm like, wait a second, that's what Coach just talked about last week. Wait, that's just what Derek Carr just, as you start connecting all these dots, you start understanding there's a path forward. Why don't we write a book about it to help the next generation go through whatever they want to go through and come out the other side a little bit better? And through that process, I think I've learned quite a bit on balancing self-growth with self-acceptance. I think that in this industry, a lot of athletes, a lot of football players, how much more can I get? How much more can I do? How much more can I give? And at some point, you have to be okay with who you are as a human being too. So we're always learning, we're always reading, we're always developing, man. It's a blessing.
That's great. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Darren, we'll turn to you. You've had several excellent pieces on talk about vulnerability, your story, the NFL 360 you did with Hayden was just phenomenal, and the journey you took dealing with substance abuse and disappointment and things like that. Why don't you share with the group, how you were able to get through that and what advice you would give them on just dealing with, the things that you were working with?
So for me, I don't know if anybody knows my story. I was addicted to drugs and alcohol. Started using when I was 15 with painkillers, went to weed, alcohol, pretty much anything that could give you that feeling. And, I don't consider myself somebody that chose to stop. I feel like I got stopped. Like God made me stop because that's the only way that I knew how to learn, is rock bottom. So for me, it's
being in that rock bottom situation, having that sense of control and like I had everything figured out stripped away from me in order to open my mind up to the fact that there was a different way of going about life. And I never set out and was like, you know what, I can't wait to be an alcoholic when I grow up. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I break it down to, I just wanted to change the way that I felt. Like when I was a kid, never felt like I fit in. Emotionally, just extremely sensitive, mind just moving at 1,000 revolutions per minute at all times. I just wanted all that stuff to quiet down, and I just wanted to be accepted by the people around me. And those things get so loud in you that you just want to just make it all go away. And that's what drugs and alcohol were for me. But then that doesn't allow me to show up as the most authentic version of myself because I'm masking things. I'm trying to show up in different rooms and impress you. And the pain and shame of me not showing up as myself makes me want to just go into that hole even deeper. So coming out of that, it's learning new tools, learning new ways to express myself, journaling, being vulnerable, being honest, building community, having brothers and men that can walk through and have similar values, similar goals as me. And just continuing to walk that path, therapy, being of service, all these things that these men are up here talking about are things that saved my life, and continuing to be in the practice of those things is what allows me to continue to seek growth as a man and to allow people to look at my story and say, dang, I want what he has. I want to start to do some of the things that he's doing or the things that he's speaking about, the energy that he has. And it's all just a continued practice, but for me, it was just really getting honest and getting down and being like, I don't have a lot of this figured out, and I need emotional skills. Like, we have physical skills, we have mental skills, but as far as emotionally, like, we don't necessarily have that, and we need to be able to teach younger generations that, because if we can't, regulate those things, if we can't sit with those feelings, then we're gonna try to find all these different ways to just make it all go away and numb ourselves, when in reality, like Brandon said, we need to feel everything. Like, if you don't feel the bad feelings, there's no way you can know what a good feeling is. So it's just about, I feel like it's starting from that emotional standpoint.
Thank you very much. I had the pleasure of seeing you do a panel Tuesday with Clark County and the NFL, NFLPA. You talked about that whole health piece, personal, physical, spiritual, to the youth. That was really good. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So Brother Marcus, you were a first-round draft choice. You've been in the NFL, been in several different teams. Tell me, how did you manage through some of the mental health challenges you had? What were some of the things that got you through it, and what advice would you give the audience here?
Yeah, so being a first-round draft pick, especially getting drafted to the Philadelphia Eagles, we all know that's a market. They are very passionate fans, right?
They're crazy.
They're ruthless. We all know that. And coming into it, I didn't really understand the lingo from football. I didn't have anybody in my family who could tell me about, okay, what is the NFL going to be like? I was the first one in my family to ever get that far, so I didn't really understand what it was going to be like. And it took a toll on me. I was looking at Twitter. I was looking at all these things that they were saying about me. And I realized that I had an anxiety issue. And then that anxiety issue turned into depression, right? So over the course of my career, this was ongoing anxiety, depression each and every year. And then once I got to my fourth year, when I was playing in Seattle, it came to a head, and we were talking about suicide prevention. That was something that happened with me. That was something that, I had to finally say, hey, I need help. Because I wanted to finish my career and be able to go further. But, as men, we oftentimes don't know how to say we need help, and we don't know how to articulate our feelings or what we feel. And one of the things that really helped me was when I started to go to therapy, and thank you for, Pete Carroll, because being in Seattle was probably the best place for me, because Pete Carroll allowed me to take time away from the game. He allowed me to go seek therapy. And the first thing that she said to me was, well, do you know how you feel? And I'm like, you know what? I really don't know. I was blaming everything on football. Like, football is the reason why I'm here, rather than going within, going back to when I was 8 years old to when I had my first anxiety attack. That was that was the thing. And she put me on this feelings wheel, and the feelings wheel allows you to articulate, okay, what am I feeling on that day? And so I was actually able, after that, I took some time away. I was able to see my daughter born. My wife was pregnant at the time, and I was able to see her born. And then I ended up signing with the Redskins after that, because I started to take that journey to redefine who the real Marcus Smith was, and know that, you know, I'm not alone, and I'm in this for the right reasons.
That's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Knowing your feelings and managing them, that's important. Carl, I'm gonna come back down to you. Actually, I'm gonna talk about, can you talk about how your teammates, your coaches, your friends and teachers have played a role in helping you deal with mental health issues?
It's a great question. I was actually going to touch on what Mark just
Absolutely.
said. So,
Please do.
and it kind of ties in. So great timing. I don't know if you planned that, but
Yeah, absolutely. I sure did.
so I'm from Westchester, Pennsylvania, and I remember it was at Lincoln. My first game was against the Birds, and the fans were roasting everybody down the line on the bench, and I could feel them like getting to me. And they said, "Hey, yo, Nassib, we are," because I went to Penn State, and I was like, "Thank God!" Like they didn't come after me, but they are vicious, right? And so, one of my best friends I grew up with, he would just chirp about the Birds constantly, and I'm like, "Can you lay off? Like, you don't even know what it's like up here, right?" And it took him like 5 years of me being in the league to be like, Carl, like, I have a different perception of what these athletes go through. These fans, these people look at us like we got it all, no problems. I just moved to New York City, and they're some of the wealthiest, most depressed people I've ever met in my entire life. And like money, status does not equate to happiness. And so you ask like what the value is of a teammate, of a friend, and like this is a very valuable network to have, because like those who get it, and those who don't. Like you don't understand the pressure. It is the most highly competitive environment anybody will ever be in. And it's like, you don't want to tell anybody because you don't want to be like, woe is me, right? You got, it's a gilded cage, you got first world problems. But like the problems are real, and they don't just stop depending on your financial status. So being vulnerable, articulating your problems, but learning the tools to even identify what your problems are super, important. And, you got this is just like so valuable. And I don't think it's probably not even like unique to athletes. I feel like other industries probably, maybe if it's a doctor or somebody. So like getting connected to people that understand your job is wildly important. And because people outside don't know. So yeah, so I think that it's incredibly important to have people in your space that you can chat with, that you can, vent to, and then like 20 minutes later you feel a lot better. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Brandon, let's talk about stigma. Talking about mental health and suicide prevention seems to be, still taboo in certain areas within the community. What do you think we need to do to help break stigma?
Let's see. To help break the stigma is, like I said when you first asked me, just be more personable. Not be afraid, not be ashamed to ask for help, not to just talk to people. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My great-grandmother is from Palmetto, Louisiana. And Palmetto is about the size of the stage. We have one stop sign. It's one gas station that has the car wash, so everybody works, like everybody's at the car wash. And it's to the point to where that town is so small to where we can all hop in the car right now and ride down, and everyone will wave from their porch as if you're family. And like the sense of family, I've had that since a very young age. Like I've always had cousins who were never my cousins. And to this day, I'm 34 years old and I call this 40-year-old man my cousin. And it's like half of them I don't even know their name, it's just cousins. Yeah, it's my Uncle Warren and that's my cousin and that's my cousin. And the kids is like, well, who's that? That's your cousin, I don't know. But we just gotta get back to that and just break the stigma. As he said, it's like being a man isn't the tough guy, chest out, head up, I'm gonna attack this head on. It's when you have a problem, when you have something going on and you can't do it yourself, you have to ask for help. And that's the biggest thing is a lot of us have to move our pride and our ego aside. And I blame TV, I blame the phone, I blame all of that. Because once you can step back and remove all the pride, the ego, the masculinity and all that, you can kind of see the world different and you can be more understanding. I've been with my wife since 2008, and I would say right when I found out I had cancer in 2018 is around the time it clicked for me to where it was, all right, I can talk. You just got to kind of just being back to being open, being a person, and that doesn't make you less of a man. It doesn't make you a boy or a child or anything like that. Is being a man is really being able to set your feelings, your pride, your ego aside and be just a good person.
Wow. I heard openness, authenticity, trust, connections. That's powerful. Thank you very much. So Solomon, let's talk about men. They don't typically like to seek help. They don't like to go talk about their feelings. We know also within the Black community, although we're 20% more likely to have a mental illness, we're 33% less likely to get the mental health treatment. Well, how do you think we need to fix that? How do we need to get so men open up more and also get the treatment they need?
Yeah, no, I feel like this really follows the question you just asked Brandon. I think a lot of that is breaking the stigma. And that deals with a lot like what we're doing today, just having grown men up here who are in a position where we're playing this gladiator sport and we're viewed as having everything all together. People look at us, we probably think, hey, they're in their dream job, they're getting dream money, have dream families, dream situations. And in the reality, like, we're just normal human beings going through regular emotions that anyone else goes through. Living a high stress job, like high performance job, dealing with a lot of things. So, this is a way that we can break the stigma by having these men talk and say, hey, we're human. Like, we go through depression, we go through anxiety, we go through substance abuse, we go through adversity and all these things. So I think like that's the first thing. And then just to teach men the science of the disease of mental health. Like, mental health isn't just a feeling that you can get over. It's there's pathways in your brain that aren't communicating, where you're not getting enough serotonin, you're not blocking enough cortisol. Like, if you understand the seriousness of this disease of mental health, of this illness of mental health, then you can understand that, hey, I can't just push through this. Hey, I can't just flip a coin and put my head down and be fine. Like, I need help. And for me, therapy was everything for me. Therapy saved my life. I learned how to identify my emotions. I learned the language of how to put it into words. I didn't know how to describe, when I first met with my therapist, I didn't know how to describe my feelings of what I was going through. I just would cry to her, and she would teach me how to put these feelings into words and to be able to describe them so I can communicate with my parents, so I can communicate with my friends and tell them how I'm feeling. And just from that, just learning more and more about this seriousness of mental health. So once we teach men that, and they can understand, hey, like, it's more than just pushing through things. But it's not just therapy. There's so many options out there. There's journaling, there's meditation, there's art therapy, there's music therapy. There's so many ways that you can find help. Whether it's going outside and going for a walk, getting enough sunlight, making sure you're checking your blood work, getting the right vitals, getting the right vitamins, all this kind of stuff. Like, spending 20 minutes a day away from, there's scientific information on spending 20 minutes a day away from your job, making sure that you're actually having time to be in solitude and being yourself as a human being. But all these things are important to understand that, hey, men, it's okay to get help, and it's okay to ask for help. And I think the last thing I'll say about it is that to understand the strength that comes with. It is not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It is a true sign of strength. It's like I said earlier, like, it took everything in my body to be able to be like, hey, I need help, and I need to go to therapy. I need to find a way to deal with my emotions and to understand my emotions. But yeah.
Thank you very much. You talk about the warning signs and creating safe environments. When you guys go to build the boxes, there's going to be a resource card in there that talks about warning signs and how to work with your feelings and how to create sort of safe environments. So that's going to come in very handy. Alec, let's talk about courage. You saw the video Howie did that Rob shared, and he mentioned the word courage. How has courage helped you get over? Give us an example where you had to use courage to get over a big problem or a situation dealing with your life.
Courage. That's a it's a buzzword, but it's a hard word to really embrace and lean into. I think my biggest fear in life was not being good enough. And that came from being adopted. That came from a guy that looks like me, I've never met before, saw me as a liability, problem, an issue that he didn't want to deal with. And that just catapulted a need for me to get that external validation. It catapulted this people-pleasing aspect of my personality. It brought a lot of things to the surface, right? So to have the courage to truly try your hardest, to truly go all in and bet on yourself and be willing to put yourself out there, be vulnerable, have that solitude, have this balance about you, and go after something that you're dreaming of and still fall short. I didn't have the courage a number of times to be able to truly make that leap, to truly make that commitment to myself, to my family, to my teammates. Facing that fear is courageous, and one of the best tools I ever learned along the way, once I made that commitment to myself, just to try, to give it my all and see what happens, was being present. I felt like I could be at my best self when I was here in this moment. A lot of people have heard a lot of great things and stories from a number of these inspirational human beings, right? Your mind starts to wander. You start to think about all the problems you can solve or all the volunteer work you can do. It's like, what if we just take a breath? We're just here together in this moment. That's powerful. That's courageous. That's the ability to put whatever problems are in front of you or behind you aside, and let's absorb this moment here together for what it is. And once I was able to do that time and time and time again, whether you're in the middle of a third quarter and you need a big stop, you need a big play, or it's a Wednesday meeting and it's an install, to find ways to be present was a number of different ways where it helped connect to that courage to go all in and try your best and not worrying about the problems of tomorrow or yesterday.
That's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. When I was with Darren at that panel Tuesday, he talked about be where your feet are. That presence piece, that's powerful. And Darren, give us some more advice that you'd have for the youth. What advice would you give youth for dealing with hardships and maybe being accepted, those kind of things? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, everybody has that question. They like, if you could go back and tell your younger self something, what would you tell him? And I feel like that answer for me is, I say to him, like, you see that you're very different than the people around you in a lot of different ways. And you may see that as some sort of burden or that something is wrong with you. But in reality, that is what makes you unique. That is what gives your life and your existence meaning. That's what gives you a purpose in this world, because nobody else can be you. Nobody else can make the type of impact, bring the kind of light that you bring to the world. So I would just introduce the word authenticity to him, which is what a lot of us struggle with in this day and age, is showing up as who I am, regardless of how you feel about me, and being okay with that, because I'm somebody that from the age of 6, 7 years old was very consciously aware of, man, who I am at my core, just me just showing up at base level is not accepted and is not good enough. So I'm going to change and make sure that you give me that thumbs up and that you approve of me, because I desperately need that love. But in choosing to compromise at that level allowed me to chase success and check off every goal box that I had on the sheet of paper that I wanted to do in life. And once they were all checked off, it was just like, damn, that's all this is? Like it's got to be more to this than what was sold to me. And so authenticity is huge. It's just showing up as who I am, showing up in my truth. We talk about breaking the stigma. It's if all of us committed to showing up just as our most authentic selves in every room that we went in, that would mean showing up and knowing our strengths, but also allowing people to see our scars. That would allow people to take notice and see that that's okay, and to give them permission to do the same. Because leaders would start doing it, and where leaders go, followers go. the people that look to them are going to go where they go and go where they set the tone. So I would say, no matter how hard it is, because it's so hard as a kid, like authenticity for me is like, I would tell you that there's no way I can do that. Like, I'm just gonna get laughed at, I'm gonna get picked on, I'm gonna get told I'm not black enough, I'm gonna get told that I'm weird. Like, I don't want to be authentic, but that's where perseverance comes in. That's where courage comes in, because courage is like, you can't be fearless and have courage. Like, courage requires fear and stepping into that fear regardless of how you feel. So I would just say, to the best of your ability, just be authentic.
Authentic, that's awesome. Oh, absolutely, thank you for, oh, I'm so sorry your bus got lost. But the Clark County kids are in, that's awesome. Thank you for being here, appreciate it. So I'm gonna go to Marcus now and to ask you to talk about how can influencers like yourself and the folks on this panel make a difference in changing the landscape of how we think about mental health and suicide prevention?
Yeah, for me, when I started this journey was in 2019. It was terrifying. It was I was scared to death because, in the locker room, we're not going around to each other like, just being vulnerable with each other, right? And talking about those deep, dark feelings that we may have been feeling. And what I did was, after that, once I really started that journey process and I started looking within myself, I had, started a nonprofit in which we unmask the feelings that cause anxiety and depression. And the biggest thing with that is we don't necessarily know who we are under the helmet, right? That's why my logo is a helmet, half face, half helmet, because we are constantly looking for our purpose. What are we on this earth to do? What are we supposed to be doing? We're constantly searching for that. And so through therapy and through, he spoke about journaling a little bit too as well, being able to put those thoughts on paper, because sometimes our minds are rolling 1,000 miles a minute and we don't know how to get through that part. Like, even coming up here, I can be honest with you guys and say, hey, I was having anxiety coming up here, being able to speak to you. But how do we get through those parts? Learning breathing techniques that to really help us, like slowing your breathing process down and really identifying what is the true problem, right? And so through that and what we were doing and how I was doing, I think that, that part of it was super important for me to get to the part of the healing process. And I always would say that, especially to the young kids out there, like, you have to realize that success is not a destination, it's a mindset. And we have to understand that if you really look at success, all of us, when people look at us, are like, oh man, these people are successful, right? We've all been through something, right? So really, true success is the pain, the struggle, some of the things that you endure along the way to get to your purpose. That is really true success. And so I just wanted to convey that to the kids, and I'm hoping that they hear that and be able to push that message forward.
That's awesome. Thank you for being authentic and sharing your feelings and talk about resilience too, really, yeah. So I'm gonna close by asking each of you just to give any parting words you have for the youth or the audience here of, what you recommend or what you think we need to be doing to help improve mental health, or just any key closing comments you wanna make. Carl, I'll start with you.
Yeah, if you're recording it, you got to watch this. If you guys missed out, I mean, I miss you guys. You guys are doing great stuff. It's great to meet you guys. Like, the things that you were saying, I'm like, man, I've been going through this year, right? So, if this videotape, there's been some amazing advice and points made here today. I just retired in September, and so, like, I'm entering a new field, and, like, there's a lot of imposter syndrome, and I've been thinking, like, man, I gotta get some courage. Like, I swear, I was thinking that like 2 months ago. You know what I mean? And then, like you were saying, being your authentic self is like, I find code switching is something I do a little too much. You know what I mean? Like, and so when, I do like work with a lot of different industries, a lot of different types of people, and I feel myself kind of being like a chameleon to who I'm talking to. And I've only just gotten better at it very recently, of just kind of being like, no, you're who you are. Just be that person all the time. And so, yeah, be who you are all the time, and people will love you for it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough act to follow. But piggybacking off of what he said, like, yes, be yourself. And what helps is you got to find people who understand you. And that takes time, that does take work, but that also takes conversation. I'm sure we all have had teammates. I know I can take the conversation this far with this person. I could take it even further with this person. And with this person, it's a high and a bye. And that's just how it is. It's not trying to be mean, and I'm not trying to get you away from anything. It's just, that's what it is. I want to be myself, and I don't want to be somebody else just so we can hang out. And you're shorting yourself. You're shorting the other person, but you're shorting yourself mainly. I tell my son all the time everybody starts at a line, and everybody gets a string of rope. And let's imagine there's a cliff right there. If the person wants to come into your line, they have to cross that line. And when they cross that line, they fall off that cliff. Now, how far they fall depends on them, because the climb up the rope is a lot easier than the climb down when you're hanging off a cliff. I don't know if any people go rock climbing, but hang off a cliff on a rope and see how hard that is just to hang there. So you gotta watch who you're with, watch who you're with, watch what you say, and just be respectful when you say stuff. You can have the meanest thing to say and say it in the nicest way, and it makes a big difference. Like, you smell somebody walking by one day, you don't want to just like, damn, did you shower? No. Hey man, everything all right? Just yeah, you good? I'm just checking in. Just want to make sure, I don't want to say your water off at home and you don't have no soap. I'm not saying that. I just want to know, how are you? You all right? And that's what it takes. And then, and I have 3 friends from high school. I talk to one, every 2 days, and we were talking about this like 2 weeks ago. I had a running back coach, and we all hung out, and he always would say, it's like, Brandon, it would never be, it was that group of guys over there. It would always be, it was Brandon and his friends. No matter if we were doing good, if we were doing bad. Back in high school, most of the time we were doing bad, but it was always me and my friends. And I took that as a responsibility of I have to control who I hang with, because who I hang with is a reflection of me. And me and my wife had the same conversation, and it goes all the way down the line. Everybody attached to you is a reflection of you. And so if you have those pure people, those clean people, that is just even better. Everybody can see you that much more. And because like a lot of my teammates, Marcus even, if you see who I hang with, you get to talk to him, yeah, B. And yeah, everybody does that, because everybody calls me B. Nobody calls me Brandon. Nobody calls me Bolden. Nobody calls me my jersey number. I've been B since I came out the womb, because it's 3 of us. It's Brandon, Brian, and Braylon. And then my son is Bryson. So, everybody's kind of just, it's just B's everywhere. But you just take care of the people who take care of you, and life is so much easier, and you can be able to get that stress off. You can be able to be a better person and listen to everybody else's stresses and not let their stress compromise you, because that person is telling you this because they have the courage to trust you, and you can trust them because they have that trust in you. So it's just, you don't have to have this huge-ass circle. You don't have to have this crazy amount of friends. You only need 1-2 solid friends. That's it. And those are people who will walk you to the end of time, because they're there because they have your best interest in mind and you have theirs. So just, be a good person. Find you a family outside of your own personal family, and just be friendly. Think before you speak and be respectful when you do.
Yeah, I really hope that they're recording this and they can give every kid in here, this whole conversation, because everything that everyone said has been unbelievable. I'm learning myself, like Carl said, just taking notes and taking just mental checks of how I can apply this to my own life. But for me, like what I would tell the youth today, I would say love yourself unconditionally. It took me till I was 25 years old to love myself. Like I'm talking about like body dysmorphia, accepting my personality, accepting who I genuinely and authentically am. And if anyone's known me the last 3 years of my life, I've been the true Solomon Thomas every single day. Just coming with a certain energy, coming with a certain mindset, vulnerability, authenticity. And it took me a while. And in my journal every day I write, I love myself unconditionally. Because someone who's I wake up, I look in the mirror, and I get those old habits. Like it's a skill, and it's hard to break those old habits, but you have to work and you have to practice at them. And so I would say first, love yourself unconditionally, because like Darren said, you're unique the way you are. You're imperfectly perfect the way you are. Like the way that you were made, the way God made you is the way you're supposed to be. So first do that, and then I would say honor your feelings. You're feeling them for a reason. Whatever you're going through, don't push them down, don't suppress them. Accept them and honor them so you can search through them, so you can see why you're feeling a certain way. What's making me feel this way, and then you can be in tune with who you are, so you can be more authentic, so you can unapologetically be yourself. And then understand that, hey, it's okay not to be okay in this world. Like we live in a social media driven world where it's all highlights. It's all the best things you put on your life. Hey, like, all right, I just bought this, I just achieved this, but that's not what life's about. Life's about the ups and downs, it's about diversity. It's about the sad times, it's about the hard times. Like Darren said, you can't feel the good if you don't feel the sad. And I truly believe that. I believe because of the sad point and the dark point I went in my life, I can reach a whole new level of happiness because I've been there and I've felt that and I really feel. And then I'll just leave you with, that you never know what someone's going through. You never ever know. Everyone's fighting a battle that you don't know about. So be kind. Show love. Take a breath before you react sometimes, because maybe someone's coming at you with attitude that you don't deserve, but you don't know what they went through that morning. You don't know what they went through at home. You don't know what their family is like if they have a family. So just always keep that in mind, because people need love and people need kindness, people need empathy nowadays. We live in a very self-gratification world, and I think it's very, very important to understand that. But yeah, that's what I leave you with, and just to go be yourself, to love and live this life unapologetically. Love yourself, and go be the best you in whatever you're doing.
Be the best you, man. That's real. And a lot of people would say be the best you is like go out and accomplish a lot of things, get a lot of stuff on your resume. And my one thing for you guys to take away is who you are in life matters more than what you do. Who you are matters so much more in life than what you do. No matter what goals you accomplish, no matter what school you get into, no matter what achievements happen, how much money you make, those are all like numbers and words on a sheet of paper. The person that you are, the person that shakes your hand as soon as you introduce yourself, the way you walk into a building, the way that you're just a good kid when you go home, the way that you're willing to be a good friend every single day. The little things are the big things. Who you are matters more than what you do. That's what I got for you guys.
Fire.
Fire.
For me, I would just say it's a simple perspective shift. I would say to live life from the inside out. A lot of us, this world tells us to live life outside in. Like if I make a certain amount of money, if I get a certain title on the front of my desk, if I have good-looking people around me, if I got the whip, if I got the jewelry, if I got whatever it may be, then that's going to change me on the inside. That's going to make me feel different than I did when I showed up. It's going to make me feel fulfilled, when really you're just chasing after the wind. That's just empty longing. Whereas living from the inside out is me taking care of myself, me loving myself unconditionally. Because if I show up to any situation with peace of mind, if I show up to any situation with self-respect, if I show up to any situation with compassion, kindness, and love, no matter if the result is what I want it to be or not, watch how my perspective of that situation changes. Watch how I show up with gratitude. Watch how I show up and am able to see the opportunity in these things that I wasn't able to see before. So I would say it's a matter of living life from the inside out.
Yeah, I would say to be open. My first part of therapy, it was because I had to, right? I had got to a certain point where he was talking about at your rock bottom, right? I had to be in therapy, right? And the person that was sitting across from me didn't look like me, but at the same time, she could empathize with me. So I would say be open, just because even though the person doesn't necessarily look like you, especially coming from the community that I come from, African American household, I was afraid to have a person that didn't look like me in the therapy room. But because I hit rock bottom and I had to do that, I realized that, she is a dope therapist and she really can help me. So even when you're going to get help and you actually want to take a part of that journey, I would just say be open and have an open mind with it, because that person may be the best person and could help you save your life.
Thank you very much, everybody. Carl, B, Solomon, Alec, Darren, Marcus, you guys kicked butt. Thank you so much. Let's give them a hand. So I know I went over by about 6 minutes, but the dimes they dropped about being compassionate, authentic, open, being courageous, being resilient, don't shorten yourself. Empathy, live life on the inside out, love and gratitude, all dimes and pearls of wisdom that I think will help everybody in this room. So with that, I want to thank Rob and Megan and Kendra and the team for allowing us to be a part of your life today. And hopefully this makes a difference for you or somebody close to you, and we appreciate the opportunity. I think at this stage, I'm supposed to hand it to Megan, is that right? So Megan, it's all yours. Thank you very much.
Oh, you stay there. Thank you so much for spending your time with us here today. And all we ask is you share this conversation with your friends, your colleagues, your kids, your neighbors that you experienced today. Thank you for joining us today.